Alright guys, welcome to RC Mojo. This week we're going to put the lower bits of the bodywork back together. We did a quick assembly a few videos ago so I could work out how the wiring and the electronics were going to mount. Well, that's mostly planned out now, so I've painted all the bits that need painting, more or less, so we can assemble properly with all the bits and bobs. We'll gloss over some of the bits that we went into detail with in the quick assembly and just concentrate on the new bits. Right, we're starting at step 44, the front wheel arches. Off camera I've glued the inner and the outer arches with some poly cement. They needed plenty of time to harden up before handling them. The arches have the indicator repeaters, but Tamiya don't provide an LED holder. Happily, your favourite Chinese suppliers come to the rescue with these little mounts with built-in yellow LEDs. We won't fully fit them in this video, but we will do a quick test to make sure they're worth using. In step 44, the only fixings we need are the 6 3x8 self-tappers to attach the arches to the electronics tray. Although, with all the bits that we need to glue on, we might have to leave them to dry first. For plastic, we need BB2 and 3, the lenses. Now make sure you keep track of which is which, as they are a mirror image of each other. Also, we need the GG parts tree with the tread plates, but we'll cut those free as we need them. In the LED pack, we get some really thin tubing, most likely heat shrink, 2 resistors if you're connecting to a 5V supply, and in a bag we have the LEDs and the mounts. They look like they've been resin printed, but it's quite hard to tell. There's no marks you'd expect to see with injection molds, so either they're really well made or they're just printed. On one side there's a bit that backs the hole in the arch behind the lenses, and on the other end is a tab that fits in a slot in the arch. Quite a neat design that ends up with the LED nice and central. They're going to need a spot of glue to attach them though. I'm quite happy with them, so when we get to the LEDs we will just glue them in. The lenses fit onto the outside of the light holes. They have a lip around the edge, so they position themselves fairly well. We're going to be gluing them to the paint, so we don't want to use a glue that's going to damage the paint like poly cement. Instead, we're going to use an odorless cyano. It's clear, won't melt the paint, and unlike normal cyanoacrylate or super glue, won't fog up the gloss paint. To apply, I'm going to use a cocktail stick to pick some up and very carefully run a bead around the edge. Now this is going to be a bit tricky, so I am going to do it off camera. The main thing is we want to use as little as we can, so when we drop the lens on it doesn't all ooze out and make a mess. Next we have the foot plates, which we can glue in with poly cement. Ideally we'd scrape the paint off for best results, but the glue will attack the paint, so it is going to work well enough. We just need a little pool of the cement, then we can pop in a plate. On this side at the bottom we have GG5 and at the top we have GG4. The other side needs the same treatment but with the appropriate parts. Then we put them off to one side for a while, along with the 6 screws so they can harden up before we fit them. Next we're going to go back to step 30, the rear light lenses. These will need some drying time, so now's a good time to do it. We need AA3 and 4, the clear lenses, CC1 and 2, the red lenses, and H6 and 7, the mounts, which have been painted black with chrome silver inside the buckets. First we'll attach the clear lenses to the red ones. Now much like the side repeaters, we're going to use some odorless cyano, applying it with a cocktail stick around the inside of the hole in the red lens. We need to use as little as we can, but still have a fairly consistent bead. Then we offer up the clear lens, being extremely careful not to touch the glue, positioning the clear lens so it's nice and flat. When both are done, we can leave them for a few minutes to start to stick. Then we apply some odorless cyano to the inside of the holes in the light buckets. We don't need to use a vast amount, just make sure the inside of the hole has a nice coat. Then we carefully pop the lens in so it's fully down and even. Repeat with the other one, and then we put them off to one side to fully dry before we fit them. Okay, skipping ahead again, and we're on to step 36, the left side skirt, with a bit of a hint on the paint scheme. We need 3 M2x4s, 4 M2x5s, 2 2x6 self-tappers, then for plastic there's 2 Z9 mounts, 2 BB1 lenses, 2 N5 buckets, 2 W15 LED clips, and because I was on a roll getting 2 of everything, we've got 2 DD5 light bars and 2 ME3 lens strips, but we only need 1 of each, of course. We also need GG8 and 11, the steps, and when I notice it, we need T4, which is the exhaust. Starting with the running lights, we need to drop a lens into the hole in the skirt, and as long as you haven't gone too crazy with the amount of paint, they will fit perfectly. Next, a bucket slides on, fitting nice and square to the lens. And in the hole we will end up with a 3mm LED, but we're not quite ready for the LEDs just yet. On the back we have a W15 clip and one of the 2x6 self-tappers. Now the screws don't need to be all that tight, they just need to be far enough that they pinch the parts. If the parts wobble, then tighten the screw a little bit more until the stack feels nice and secure. Same goes with the other running light, so fit it and we have the running lights in. Next we'll fit the 2 mounts. These have little tabs that stick out that need to be towards the top of the skirt. Otherwise they just get fitted with 2 M2x5s each. It's also worth noting that after paint, especially if it's fairly fresh, it's a good idea to put something under the painted surface so it's not rubbing on the bench while you're doing up the screws. A good clean microfiber cloth works a treat. And here's where I notice the lack of T4, the exhaust, which just offers up to the recess at the bottom of the skirt and gets an M2x4 from the back. But I still need to paint the bottom of the exhaust black, but I'll do that off camera at some point in the future. For the light bars we need to insert the lens strips. They fit nicely but could do with a spot of glue if you're going to use them as Tamiya intend. However, I've got a pair of nice PCBs with surface mount LEDs and resistors. They come with some longer mounting screws, but otherwise they just mount up behind the bars and get connected to a power source. But I'm not going to fit them just yet though, as I want to modify them so I can control the LEDs individually. From a quick look, they do look well designed though. So for the time being we'll attach the bar with the 2 M2x4s. They're super easy to strip though. There's only a couple of millimeters of thread going into the plastic, so be gentle with them. Lastly, we have the steps, which get fitted just like the ones on the wheel arches. We add some poly cement and place the steps on the top. Stick both on and we can put the skirt off to the side to harden up. Step 37, the right hand side skirt. We need 2 M2x4s, a single M2x5 cap head, which is still fitted from the quick build, 2 2x5 self-tappers and 5 2x6 self-tappers. For the plastic, we have the light bar and its lens, another set of running light parts, the hinge Z5, and when we get to it, Z10, the wire guide. I'll fit the running lights off camera since they're exactly the same as the other side, and the hinge gets fitted with the 2 2x8s, just like we did in the quick assembly. Along the bottom we fit the light bar with the 2 M2x4s, which just leaves the wire guide Z10. Quite a neat idea, because this side skirt hinge is open and we don't want the wires trailing all over the place, so Tamiya have designed a part that brings all the wires out near the hinge line, keeping it all nice and neat. We don't have any wires just yet though, but we will still fit it so we know where the wires need to run. The step on the left side skirt is still drying, so we'll skip ahead a bit to step 44, where we started, and we'll fit the wheel arches to the chassis. First, the wheels need to come off so we can get the arches in. Then we offer up the arches with a screw and thread it in. With the electronics plate in place, you can just about get to the screws. It's a bit awkward, and you might need to turn the steering a bit, but it's quite doable. Each side gets 3 3x8 self-tappers, nip them up, and the arches are done. Now, while we've got the front wheels off, we're going to do a bit of step 50 and fit the AB1 flanges. I've painted them gloss black to match the paint scheme, they just need gluing on. Now I'm going to use some more odourless Sino and a cocktail stick, so we've got some tiny spots between all the wheel nuts. We only need a very small amount so it doesn't ooze out when we drop the flanges into place. Now there's not too much to line the flanges up on the wheel. The nuts poking through get things somewhere near, but there's still a fair amount of movement, so we need to centre up the flanges carefully and then put the wheels off to the side to dry before trying to refit them to the chassis. Next up, we're going back to step 28, the rear arches, specifically the Y3 parts that join the midsections together. Now I've painted them matte black, but they do look a little bit plain. I think the large area of black with the wheel arches isn't going to look great, so I've got some nice metal parts that wrap around the tops with the Scania V8 logos. Okay, first we'll clip them free of the surround. Now they're supposed to be stainless steel, which is certainly possible, they don't feel like aluminium. Next we'll use a small file to smooth out the very sharp nubs that are left over. Not only will those sharp bits cut up your fingers if you're not careful, they'll also scratch up the paint if you get things in the wrong spot. The parts have lines cut into them, so the bends are always in the perfect place. We just need to bend them so the small flange is at 90 degrees and the long end that goes on the outside is just slightly overbent. When we stick it to Y3, the overbend will keep it pressed against the plastic. To attach them, I'm going to use some thin double-sided tape. If we try to use glue, we'd need to clamp it in place, which could be more than a little bit fiddly. 2 bits of tape will work just fine, a nice big bit on the top and a small bit on the side. Then we peel the backing off and offer up the metal part. It's perfectly sized, so as long as we keep it parallel and tight, it's going to be spot on. Adjust the bend on the small tab, fit the other one, and they're ready to go. Okay, I'm going to do the next bit off camera, so I'm not trying to do it with the camera between me and the truck. Plus, it's a repeat of the quick assembly. I'll be fitting the rear arches with the lights and the front wheels. And here we go. Sometime later, the rear arches are fitted. I think the metal trim pieces do break up the black quite nicely. Well worth the time getting them right. Also, the flanges on the front wheels are nice and subtle, but fit nicely with the paint scheme. Next, we're on to step 38, fitting the skirts. Now the left skirt uses the 2 M3x10s down through the top of the mounts into the stays on the chassis. The glue was still a little bit soft, so when I nudged the top step, it moved. Not a big problem though, it just needed to be put back into place. Now we can refit the tank, but first the steering linkage needs to be removed from the servo for clearance. Then the tank drops in and we attach it from the bottom. Servo linkage back on, and we can spin the chassis round for the other skirt. This time we fit the tank first with its 2 screws, then we can offer up the skirt and thread in the hinge pin, nip it up, and that's the lower bodywork complete. There really is so many little things on the Scania 770 that make it that bit nicer than the older kits. I think maybe the Mercedes Arocs comes close, but as a kit to build, the Scania really is just that bit more interesting to assemble. Well, there's still lots of carryover from the older kits, but the new bits really are rather nice. Next week we'll put together the cab and see the rest of the paint scheme, which didn't quite go to plan. Mainly due to me not reading the label on one of the paint cans, but more on that next week. So, as always, thanks for watching, like if you like, subscribe if you haven't, and leave a comment if there's something on your mind. Bye guys!